Machu Picchu is one of the 7 wonders of the world. It is filled with extraordinary craftsmanship, beautiful beyond compare, and shrouded by the mystery of those who created it. Machu Picchu was founded in 1991 by Yale archaeologist Hiram Bigman, and it means old peak because it is found on the top of a mountain in Peru. Who built Machu Picchu? Machu Picchu, according to Martin Gray, was his article about the Incan Indians, says that the Incan Empire, or that it was built by the Incas, who had the greatest empire in the world in 1438 to 1532. They took over the whole western coast of South America, but they were shrouded with mystery and mythology because they didn't read or write. And so the only actual written evidences we have is through writings on stone and old artifacts that we can find, and through the Spanish articles as they took over Peru later on, and what they wrote about the Incan Indians. But what we do know about the Incas is they had a very successful government system. And according to Owen Jarvis, he says that the Inca accomplished their phenomenal growth through a mixture of diplomacy and welfare and sophisticated management systems based on highly effective taxation and dependable provisions of goods and services to the peoples of their realm. We know that the people were not taxed in a monetary form, but instead they paid through labor, where they would go out and they would work, and all of the goods which they would get, the crops which they would get, would all come to a central location in the government where they would store it, and then the governing leaders would distribute these things as needed, and they were a welfare state. Their methods of building were incredible. We can see in their terrace systems, which is the steps which go down the side of a mountain. These are used for several different things. First, they're for planting and for growing crops. They allow you to have a flat platform and more surface area to grow on, where usually if you try planting on the side of a mountain, it would be unsuccessful and the rain would wash it away. But they also work for stability because they prevent from erosion. They keep the mountain from slowly eating away, which would eventually cause the city to collapse. They're built in very special ways with a big, thick layer of large rocks on the bottom, and the rock slowly tapering, it's smaller and smaller in grain, and the top layer is a rich topsoil which allows plants to grow. This is good because it allows plants to grow on the top, and the water which seeps down below, which is already rich in nutrients, flows to the next step, and that goes to the next step, and they flow through sepals. And not only is the terrace system incredible, but also the stonework which builds up the city. It has large interlocking stones which hold together, which flex and allow, in an instance of an earthquake, to move and to bend without collapsing. This is a technology that they'd never seen before, and they had no iron tools to do this. This was all done by rocks and by hand. What did the Incan Indians actually do over in Machu Picchu? They were mostly farmers, as we said. They would all go out and work, and they would grow things, and they would bring all of the produce in. They would make goods and fabrics and textiles, which they would also sell and trade. They were warriors, and we see this through their conquering over the 100 years which they reigned. They conquered much of South America along the shore. They also worshipped the sun and the moon. In the middle of Machu Picchu, there's a stone called the Intihuatana stone, which also is known as the hitching post of the sun. And on March 21st and September 21st at midday, the sun stands directly over this stone, casting no shadow. And this is where it was believed that they would have the connection between the sun and the earth. And they would worship the sun through this, and this is when they had all of their rituals that would go on. And we see that the Incans were extremely successful in building Machu Picchu and having a successful governing system. So whatever happened to them? Where did they go? Christopher Minister has an article about the Spanish invasion where he talks about how Francisco Pizarro led the attack through South America, taking over almost all of it. And at this time, he wiped out the Incan Indians. But something interesting is that we don't believe that they ever made it to Machu Picchu, because that Intihuatana stone in the middle was believed to hold all the spirits of the Incans and their gods. And the Spanish would wipe out every stone and destroy them if they found them. But the Intihuatana stone still stands in the middle of Machu Picchu, making us believe that they never made it there. So what actually happened? We believe that maybe the supply lines to and from Machu Picchu were cut off, causing people to starve out, or people just to leave because they didn't want to be there anymore. The city, the mysteries that were left behind. How did they move the stones? How did they make those 50-ton stones interlock? How did they get them to those points? How did they shape them without iron tools? We don't know. How did they actually worship? What ceremonies and rituals did they do? What was the city actually used for? Was it for the elite, or was it for anybody, or was it just a central location? These are all questions that nobody knows for sure. People speculate all the time, and some of the reasons why Machu Picchu, being such a great state, has become one of the 7 wonders of the world because of the mystery which surrounds that location. And that is what makes Machu Picchu.